I just want to get this out of the way before this video gets into the heat of things, that I am not a game developer. I know that. I am simply a gamer. And I'm going to be talking about my subjective feelings about Deep Rock Galactic and how I think it needs changes. It's a very fun game. I want it to succeed, but there are some things people just aren't mentioning, and they need to be talked about. The most important aspect of the game is definitely the classes and how they interact. We're going to be going over that first. I think that's where most of the changes need to happen. So we're going to go over each class, what I think about them, and then I'm going to juxtapose them, group them, put them in a tier list, and we're going to look at them and how there are two characters in the game that are just two opposite sides of the spectrum of being good and bad, and there are two that need some simple changes, and they would be, I think, very strong and unique characters. Then there's also some problems I personally have with some of the biomes, interactions in the game, some enemy types, and some general things that I think need to be changed, but I don't know where to group them exactly. I hope the developers of the game see this, and I hope the community sees this, because I want the game to succeed. This video is going to come off as very ranty. I very much enjoyed the game. I have 170 hours in the game. That's not as many as some people do, but I know it's enough to have a solid opinion on, as a player, what is going on. Because I constantly, me and my friend always do Hazard 5s, and at the Hazard 5 level, there are very apparent problems that I do not see, and I'm not sure if it's because people aren't playing a lot of Hazard 5, or it's just they're in love with the game and they can't notice a few things. But me and my friend really have noticed some problems that need fixing sooner rather than later. Here's a tier list of what the characters, where they would go. I'm not going to reveal who they are in their specific slot, but as we go on, I will reveal them as we talk about them. But let's get right into the first character, the Engineer. The Engineer I find to be a good balance point for the rest of the classes. He has potent strengths and a few apparent weaknesses, which is how it should be. He functions in all mission types, but he definitely has some specialties. His pros are he's the most rewarding character to play. Choosing the right weapon in a situation leads to a direct positive outcome. He has good mobility and can get anywhere with time. He has the most firepower out of all the dwarves, and he can deal with swarm enemies and the larger enemies alike. His cons are his mobility speed is lacking, can use a lot of ammo to kill large enemies depending on your loadout, and these are fine cons, but he should probably have more. With the ground rules of the character placed, I'm now going to go a little bit rapid fire mode here with some of the issues I personally have with the character and his equipment, and some suggestions I personally have. The shotgun does not compare to the SMG in any way, shape, or form. The SMG with weak spot and more damage to electrocuted enemies is outright broken and can kill large enemies in less than a clip, putting out the most DPS in the game in a burst. It would be best to nerf this and make the shotgun better with more damage or more ammo. His two secondaries push him over the top a bit with how much he can deal with. He gets a turret, a really strong primary gun, and either a giant noob tube or plasma cannon. That's a lot of firepower for one class, which creates problems for the others, which we'll get to later. Two of his grenades are amazing and are viable in their own ways. However, the proximity mine is really bad and has no value compared to the other grenades in the game. I'm not sure how you can fix this. I just think it's a faulty grenade idea. Defender system with one turret is currently just the outright better option. It's more ammo efficient and does a lot of damage. 200% is just way too much with basically no cons. There's no other choice but to take the faster deploy time for its upgrade for the turret. The utility of being able to put out a turret for swarm units is heaps better than the other options, which is refilling your turret faster and more primary ammo. He's one of the two classes in the game that can effectively deal with swarmers, making him automatically very strong. The class is the most balanced out of all the others, but he's still too strong with the types of enemies that are currently in the game. There's a lot of swarm-based things. Again, I feel like the Engineer is a good balance point. He needs some slight nerfs. The SMG is too strong. He's the dwarf that I feel like the other characters should aspire to be like, and I think you'll see what I mean as we go on here. Moving on to the Scout, he is a weaker class in the game with some very good strengths but has terrible weaknesses. He's definitely the most specialized class in the game, having a very specific role, but he is very fun to play with the team. For the pros, he's great at picking off targets like Spitballers, Brood Nexuses, Detonators, Acid and Web Spitters, Praetorians, etc. He's an amazing distraction with his grapple and the really powerful Pheromone Grenade. Speed is his gimmick with how he can speed up a mission's completion time. Him and the Engineer make an amazing pair for mining missions, which I think is a very good interaction. The Flare Gun is great for spotting resources and cave leeches. And he's probably the most support-like class in the game. For the cons, he can't deal with swarms of enemies in any capacity. His weapons just can't do it, whether it be large, just regular grunts, or swarmers. His weapons just simply can't do it. He only functions with a team, and playing him solo Hazard 5 is just embarrassing. It's very hard to do. It's rapid fire issue time with some personal suggestions. The M1000 fits to the Scout's role much better than the SMG, and just all around feels nicer. That being said, the M1000 should have an upgrade where if you successfully hit a crit, the bullet impact creates a small 1 to 2 tile AoE damage effect to directly reward the player for hitting such crit, and give Scout a little more crowd control. That's what I feel like should happen to the weapon in my opinion. I honestly don't know what to do with the SMG, it just needs more damage and ammo, I guess. It's just inferior to the M1000's overall feel and utility to the identity of the character. The Pheromone Grenade is the best choice by far, but poses some issues with the rest of his kit. The secondary slot pistols aren't nearly as good without the IFG grenade bonus damage. This overall leads to a very one-dimensional loadout for the Scout, and even his upgrades have clear best choices. What I feel like should happen with the IFG grenade bonus damage is it should be converted to, under the effect of a grenade, the pistols do more damage, so this can apply over to the Cryo Grenade and the Pheromone Grenade. The grapple gun will sometimes glitch and create a visual error where the line stays out. I'm sure a lot of people know what I'm talking about. It doesn't happen very often. As mentioned before, he relies on other classes to do the killing for him. He's basically a mining slave, which can work, but not how he is currently set up. Minerals on the ceiling are something not even the Scout can get to alone. He relies on the Engineer to create platforms for him, which is something another character can do in the game, which doesn't make much sense, which we'll get to later. He probably should be able to swing his axe while grappled for at least a second before falling so he can create a hole for himself. It's very discouraging to go up to a gold vein that is on the ceiling when you don't have an Engineer and you're not able to do anything with it, but you have to keep grappling slowly, hitting away at it. He literally cannot do Hazard 5 solos. It's just too annoying and it takes too long. It's just the nature of the character and how he's set up as an identity, which it shouldn't happen though. The character should still function in a solo setting. The Pheromone Grenade is pretty front-loaded and power-wise. Before this grenade and the Blast Wave shotgun upgrade fix, this character was really bad. Like, it was very clear that he was the weakest character in the game. Update 24 had some great changes to the Scout, but it might be worth it to look more into his identity as a class, whether you want him to be the picking class that he currently is. I personally feel like he should have more of a mining identity, because he's able to zip around and speed up the time of a mission, which is actually very valuable. My friend finds this character very enjoyable to play, and I can see why he is. He just wishes he was a little bit better, and he didn't feel like he had to... Every time there's a wave, he has to come to me, and basically I have to take care of everything as another class. And that probably shouldn't be the case. He should probably be able to fend for himself a little bit more. I didn't plan for the video to be like this originally, but I'm going to split it into two parts. In this part, we covered the two classes I think need some slight adjustments power-wise to move them into the correct tier without them being too broken or too weak. In the next video, we're going to go over two classes that I feel are on two polar opposites. One being very, very good and one being very bad. In the next part, I'll also be going over some general changes that don't fit into class criteria related things.